Guys, so welcome to my first diabetes Q&A. I'm going to go ahead and just jump right into the questions because I have a lot to cover and I don't want this video to be super long, but I'm basically just going to cover questions that I got from my last day in the life video of being a low carb type 1 diabetic, especially now during pregnancy. And I'm going to try to answer your questions as thoroughly as I can, but also not take forever. So the first question I got, and I actually get this one a lot, is why do you use glucose to bring up your blood sugar instead of using carbohydrate or like a little bit of fruit or something like that? So first of all, I answered this question in an entire video where I go super into depth about why I use glucose tabs instead of carbohydrate or fruit or things like that to bring up my blood sugar. I will link that down below. But really quickly, for the sake of this video, I will tell you the reason why I use glucose instead of food is because I find that glucose is much more predictable. And ever since I've started using glucose instead of food or carbohydrate fruit to correct lows, I no longer get the rebound effect. So I know that 1 gram of glucose will raise my blood sugar by exactly 6 points. So if my blood sugar is 75 and I take 1 gram of glucose, it will be 81. I will not have a crazy spike. And in the past, my biggest problem with diabetes was the roller coaster blood sugars. Every time I'd get low, I would inevitably have a high blood sugar following that, and then you correct, and then you come down, you're back up and down and up. It's really hard to correct with fruit because the amount of fruit you would need to bring your number up just a little bit is like a quarter or an eighth of an apple, and who can eat such a small amount? You're gonna eat the whole apple and then inevitably you're gonna have a rebound. So that is why I use glucose, and again, check out the video if you want a longer answer to that question. All right, next one, this is a good one. Do you eat out like at restaurants? She's asking, since you've been pregnant, or do you avoid it? So both during pregnancy and before I was pregnant, I definitely eat out. I enjoy eating out a lot. My diet is so predictable a lot of the times, boring, monotonous, and if I wasn't allowed to eat out at my favorite restaurants, I think I would give up this low carb thing entirely, because I'm gonna be completely honest with you guys, this is a hard diet to follow because it's so strict, and that's why it's great for short periods of time like pregnancy, because you know that you can do it for like 9 months. But yeah, so eating out is one of my greatest pleasures in life, and it keeps me on track with this low carb. And just really quickly, I'll tell you my favorite place to eat out, and this is for anybody living in the States, because this restaurant I don't think exists outside of America. But my favorite like fast food place to eat at if I need something low carb is Chipotle. I love Chipotle, and they make it really easy for someone like me who eats low carb to eat there. So they offer a salad option. Obviously you can't get a burrito or tacos or things like that, but I just get a salad. It's a bed of lettuce. You skip the rice, you skip the beans, you just get the protein. So they got beef, chicken, pork. They even have a vegetarian option, which I get sometimes. And then you top it with salsa, guacamole, cheese, sour cream. All of those things are perfectly a-okay for low carb, and it is one of my favorite places to eat out. Also, do you get unexplained hypos during pregnancy? I do not get unexplained hypos during pregnancy. I find that all of my hypos are quite explainable, and it's usually because I've given myself too much insulin. So being pregnant, my greatest fear is running high, because that's what the doctors always say, like, oh, make sure you don't have high blood sugars because you can hurt the baby. So this is just me. This is how I've interpreted that. I know I'm a little extreme, but I've been kind of like freaked out about the high numbers. So what I tend to do is overshoot the insulin. Like I give myself a little bit just a little bit too much rather than not enough. And then I'll take a little bit of glucose if I need it later. And since the glucose is so predictable, I can do that. If my blood sugar is like 60, 2 hours after a meal, I can just take 4 grams of glucose, bring it back up to 80, and that's safer than me like being 180 and trying to bring it down. So yeah, no, I don't get unexplained hypos because of pregnancy, but my blood sugars did run lower in general during the first trimester. All right, another one. Why do you take 3 shots of Levemir a day? So Levemir is my long-acting insulin. That's my basal rate. That's the insulin that keeps me steady for a 24-hour period. The reason I take 3 shots is, one, that's what my doctor told me to do. My doctor is Dr. Bernstein, the guy who wrote the book that I am always talking about, and that's how he treats his patients. You take 1 in the morning to cover you for the whole day. You take 1 at night before bed. And then the 3 o'clock shot, the third one, that's the one that's unusual and only Dr. Bernstein does. And the reason you take the 3 a.m. shot is to avoid the dawn phenomenon. So the dawn phenomenon is this thing where everybody's body in the morning, your liver or something starts cleaning up all the insulin in your body and just taking it away. And for type 1s who are giving themselves insulin, that's not a good thing, because you take away our insulin and then most of us have problems with our numbers going up first thing in the morning. Well, that's why. Dr. Bernstein has found that the best way to avoid the dawn phenomenon is to give yourself a booster of the Levemir in the middle of the night. And it works. Like, ever since I've been doing that, I have never experienced the dawn phenomenon. All right, here's a popular question that I get. Why did you stop using the insulin pump? So there's a couple answers to this. Like, there's several reasons. The main reason, like the practical thing that got me to stop, is when I became Dr. Bernstein's patient, because he does not use the insulin pump. He's a type 1 diabetic, and he treats diabetics exclusively in his practice, and he has found that the best way to do his method, like the method he describes in his book, is with injections and not the insulin pump. That's partly to do with the fact that when you're using an insulin pump, you have to use either Novolog or Humalog insulin, which is a very rapid acting insulin. It's intense and it acts quickly. And when you're eating really, really low carb, so like high protein, high fat, lots of vegetables, Novolog and Humalog are tough, because Novolog is like designed to cover carbohydrates. It acts quickly and it's intense. When you eat high protein, your blood sugar never really spikes that much. Your blood sugar goes more like this. It's like in a very soft curve. It does go up, but not, like a spike you'd get if you eat carbohydrate. So he likes to use R insulin instead of Novolog to bolus with, because the R insulin is a lot less intense as the Novolog. And so that's one reason he can't use the pumps, is because you can only use rapid acting insulin on the pump, and rapid acting insulin is really only appropriate for carbohydrate. And I don't eat any carbohydrate, so I don't need a pump. Other reasons why I stopped using the pump is because I was on the insulin pump for 10 years, and after being on the pump for 10 years, I found that I had a real problem with scar tissue forming. And of course I know that you're supposed to rotate your infusion sets, like move them to different places around your body, and of course I did that, but after 10 years of rotating sites, every place on my body had scar tissue. And so what was happening was that my insulin was absorbing in really unpredictable ways. It would kind of pool there in that spot for a while, and then it would all hit me at once. And so what was happening is my numbers were getting higher and higher and higher, and then all of a sudden they would drop like crazy, because the insulin was like pooling there around the scar tissue. And so my numbers get high, 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 and I just keep giving myself more insulin, and then all of a sudden it would all absorb, and then I would get these really scary low blood sugars where my numbers were just crashing, and it was terrifying. So I was having a lot of absorption issues with insulin, and even if I hadn't started seeing Dr. Bernstein, I was talking about going off the pump just because it wasn't working for me anymore. And this is just my experience. I know a lot of people who have a ton of luck with the insulin pump. I did for several years as well. So I'm not against the pump. I'm not, saying anything against the pump. It can be a really great tool. But for me, it was more of a burden than a blessing. Like, it was really ruining my life. I was so terrified of those massive low blood sugars I was getting just because the insulin wasn't absorbing in a predictable way. So why do you use syringes instead of pens, which are much more practical? This is a good question, because pens are very practical. Like, I can see that the convenience of, having it all contained there. You can easily travel with it, and I actually did used to use pens back when I was first diagnosed. So again, the reason why I use syringes is first and foremost because that's what my doctor prescribes his patients. So Dr. Bernstein uses syringes because he feels that they are more precise than the pens. So what he means is that with a pen, you are usually not able to get quarter unit doses. He's really interested in being able to get down to the quarter unit level. So if you want to take like 3 1/4 units of insulin, it's very difficult to do that with a pen because they usually just come in increments of 1 and 1.5. And with a syringe, you can do a quarter unit by going to the, like if you want to take 5 1/4, you go to the 5 line and then you pull up so that the plunger is just right above the line, and then you've got 5 1/4. So I use syringes because that's how Dr. Bernstein treats his patients, and he feels that it's a lot more precise than the pens. And I have to say, in my personal experience of using pens and using syringes, I don't think that syringes are that like much worse than pens. Like they don't seem that impractical to me. When I travel, all I have to take is my syringes, my insulin in a cooler pack, and my blood tester, and I am set to go. I feel like like it's very simple. It's a very simple protocol. So I don't like suffer because of using the syringes. I don't think it's too bad, which is good because, like I said, it's my doctor's choice for me to use syringes. All right, and then finally, where do you get your ideas for low carb / carb free meals? This is a great question, and for the first couple years that I was on this diet, this was again my biggest problem, because my biggest complaint about this diet is how boring it is. Like, you end up eating the same stuff every day, and it doesn't have to be that way, but I totally get it that it's hard to think of creative things to do with low carb. Even now, it's still hard for me. It's like easy to fall into routines, and yeah, so where do I get my ideas? One, when I found the paleo diet, I discovered that there was this whole world out there of really interesting recipes that were low carb. So I don't follow a paleo diet. I'm not paleo, but the thing about the paleo diet is that they cut out grain. Like, they don't eat bread or things, even rice. Like, you don't find like really high carb stuff in a paleo diet. So what I started doing was buying paleo cookbooks, and it would give me ideas on how to make like really tasty low carb food. Again, I wasn't doing this for the sake of being paleo, but just to get recipe ideas. So that's one thing. If you Google or buy cookbooks, paleo recipes. And then the other really useful tool is Pinterest. You just type in low carb recipe, or if you feel like chicken, like low carb chicken recipe, and you get tons of ideas from Pinterest. So those are my 2 suggestions on where to find meal ideas when you're going low carb. All right, so I don't want this Q&A to get too long. I hope that I answered your questions adequately. If you feel like I didn't, I'm not offended. Just tell me you didn't answer my question well in the comments, and I will clarify in the comment section. So for now, I'm going to wrap it up. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.